So it's never too early to start planning for Halloween. I planned for Halloween right after Halloween last year. Halloween is one of my favorites. So today is actually a costume. This is a cowgirl costume. It has multiple layered skirts, but it's all in one piece. It has an elastic in the middle, elastic neckline and armholes, and as a bonus, there's actual bloomers to go with it. I'm partial in that children cartwheel and do all sorts of things in skirts, so I always try to make sure that there's shorts underneath skirts as much as possible. So this project is super fun, super easy, and I hope you enjoy it. Everyone, we're doing something a little different. I am choosing to make a costume this time. I'm actually going with this little cowgirl right here, except you can clearly see I chose red instead of blue. I'm also opting about whether or not I want to add fringe, but I can add it at the very end if I absolutely want to. I may or may not actually choose lace because lace is one of my favorite trends. So I'm not going to show the actual pattern and cutting these out because these were cut out before I decided to go ahead and make a video. They have been languishing with other projects for a month. Okay, so this is the front piece of our bodice. There's actually 2 layers here. The original pattern wants you to use a very thin, easily gathered fabric, so you actually need 2 layers, otherwise it is see-through. So here's our front, and then here's our back. You'll see that the armholes are slightly different. I'm going to go ahead and put that to the side. This is our sleeve. The sleeves are 1 layer because they are supposed to be sheer. And as you can clearly see, this is not going to be the easiest to do because the whole point of the neckline is for the neckline to be flat in order to be gathered. So this is not going to have that rounded shape you would typically see for sleeves. So that's our bodice. Since I already have this piece right here, I'm just going to grab it. I did not go with a sheer material for the brown, mostly because I couldn't find it, and most of this came out of my stash that I already had. This is going to be bloomers. I am a firm believer in wearing something under a skirt. That is why you will, even if I am wearing a floor-length skirt, I am wearing something underneath it. And I kind of believe the same thing for children as well, especially a child who's dressed as a cowgirl decides to do cartwheels. Last portion of this is the skirt. So, as I said, they wanted this to have a really gauzy material, so they wanted everything to be lined. Specifically, just 2 layers, and still having the seams out in the open. So the top of the skirt is still going to be this brown color, and then the bottom skirt is going to be the checkered pattern. Still leaning towards lace, but that's just me. I may or may not go by fringe, we'll see. So I did choose the gauzy material to line the bottom of the skirt, but we're going to be using a tool that the library doesn't have, which is called a serger. I may or may not just decide to recycle this particular layer and just roll hem this skirt layer and just forgo lining it because of the fact I don't think it needs it. We'll see. But that is our cowgirl outfit. It is obviously made for a child and not for me. So that's what I have cut out, and that's what we're gonna go with. Most bloomers are all done the same way, so I'm just going to sew both curves right sides together and then turn it and sew that inner leg seam. Leave a tail. Same on the other side. Then in order to make this into a pair of bloomers, go ahead, connect 2 seams together, sew that straight part, and that will be the inner leg theme, or inner leg seam. I could put a S on there. And yes, we cut off the chains of those 2 seams, and that is perfect. So this is actually ready to be finished on the sewing machine. We're going to put a casing on the top of these, and then the actual legs, and elastic inside, and they're going to be bloomers. Quick and simple. The top skirt, because the fabric is so much thicker, I just went ahead and decided that I was not going to fuss with it and have that red layer. I'm going to recycle that red layer for a different project. Maybe I'll make a cowgirl doll outfit. Who knows? Okay, so you're going to sew each short seam just like that until it makes a solid circle. Just remember to have all of your seams facing the correct direction. So you aren't alternating which side your seam is on. You're always having it on one side of the circle. Okay, so my upper skirt is done. All of the seams are facing one direction, so when I turn it right side out, all of the seams are in their proper locations. So, I'm going to do the same thing for the lower skirt. However, the lower skirt is going to have 2 layers that are sewn each time because it is made of that thinner fabric. And then, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to hem it with a rolled hem on the serger, or if I'm actually going to keep these nice points and go ahead and just do it on the sewing machine. I'm leaning rolled hem just because I like how it finishes better, and so it isn't as bulky on the tips when I'm done. So we'll see what I go with. I learned a new way to do sleeves, and instead of sewing the front and back to each other and then adding the sleeves, I'm doing the sleeves to the front, the back, and then doing the side seam all in one go. And then I can move to the sewing machine to finish up the top and bottom. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is the 2 layers of front connected to 1 layer of sleeve. And I'm going to sew that, sew the other side of the sleeve to both layers of the back, and then repeat for the other side. Sleeve to 2 layers of everything else. So now we've got the other 3 layers. Sleeve and 2 back pieces. I do like how they did just ask for more layers for the front and back pieces, whereas it's just 1 for the sleeve. So, whoops. Oh, I make mistakes. I had that sewn to that side, that sewn to that side. So I'm gonna have to rip that out, which is okay, and do it all over again so that we make an actual circle. So I will see you in a few. I have fixed it. So the awesome thing about these chains is that if you grab one strand, it'll rip the entire seam out. It's great, instead of having to seam rip the entire thing. So I'm going to go ahead and serge the underarm / side seam in one go. So this makes it so much easier to serge when you do the sleeves like this, because it's also the same way that I learned to do it in doll making, and it works incredibly well when you're working with like seams that don't need any gathers. For the most part, it works very, very well. So again, leave these chains out on this side so it gets cut off, because you do not need to weave them in. Alright, this one is done. Make sure you get a whole 4 layers on the other side, because that would be a shame if you had not. Repeat for the other underarm, and then put aside, because that is all you need to do right now until the skirt is done. Alright, see you in a few. So I'm going to show this on the bloomers because it's, with the brown fabric, so much easier to see what I'm about to do. You do this on all the casings for including the shirt. So with serger hems, you have this extra train. I'm smoothing this out, which causes 2 of the threads to be super long. And then I'm taking a tapestry or yarn needle. So this is a very blunt but very large needle, and I'm feeding it through there. Okay? The reason you don't cut serger threads is because it will unravel. So what you do instead is you go back into this seam, and anywhere downward, just kind of feed your blunt needle through so that it's up against the fabric, just like that, and pull it through. You only need to go about 1/2 inch to an inch down, and then carefully tug those last 2 through. Okay, smooth this out, and then clip. Okay, you do that for all your seams. The only time I do not do this is when this chain is going to get cut off and there's going to be a different chain there. So I'm going to repeat that process right here. And to save my poor editor some time, I actually have the legs mostly done. So I'm going to model each step, because bloomers are handy and you can have multiple steps done at the same time. Okay. Now that that's done, I like straight casings. So I'm going to fold down and then fold again. Now, the size of your casing depends on the size of your elastic, because not all elastics are created equal. So for the legs, I'm using 1/8 of an inch. The reason why is because the legs are just kind of there to gather and look pretty, but not hold up or go under a whole lot of wear and tear. Versus the waistband for children and babies, I tend to go with 1/4 of an inch. Typically, this would also be white, but surprisingly, there is a shortage in, elastic. So this is, what I would also do for waistbands is what's called non-roll. So instead of this one where I can easily fold it in half, easily I say as I struggle to do it, easily fold in half, a non-roll elastic is reinforced to stay flat. And it's perfect for waistbands. So fold down twice, and then pin. Okay. However, I already have that done on this leg. So, the difference between casings and hemming is not much, except for the fact that you want to leave a hole open. So you sew closer to the edge here to give your elastic as much room to swim as possible, and it also allows the gather to look a lot more smooth. So, I'm gonna rotate because I already sewed it. I leave a tiny hole. this is actually not the typical way I do it, because sometimes I will choose to go over this seam and actually have the hole closer right here. But the reason I didn't choose to do that is because this is the best place to hide it. And typically I would have made this smaller, but I wanted to be able to model a little bit better. I make this just enough for this to get through, and that's it. The reason why is because I don't finish that hole so that if the elastic breaks or needs to be longer or whatever reason you need to take it out, you can go ahead and do that. And then you just feed your put your elastic on a safety pin and then feed that elastic through. Now, sometimes I will pin the end of the elastic to the outside to make sure I don't end up with all of my elastic inside the casing and no end to be found. It would also be helpful if, like, the safety pin has been not the most cooperative today. Feed it through. I'm pushing the end of the safety pin and then gathering fabric down the end, grabbing the head of it and then tugging in order to feed that through. When there are more seams, it's a little bit of a struggle to get the safety pin through all of the layers of fabric. And my only thing for that is to see if you can feel what layer between the fabrics that your pin is on and see if you can get it to behave. I know, close up of my awkward thumbs. And then at this point, my elastic is really short on this side. When you pin this, do not pin it this way. If you pin it with the head going the same direction that the elastic wants to go, it's more likely to get free, versus if you pin it in the opposite direction of where it wants to go, then it generally does not escape from you. There's nothing more irritating than having to pull out all of the work that you did on elastic because the other end went through and do it all over again, especially when there's a lot of seams on what you're doing, so you end up feeling very, very frustrated. And try not to stab yourself with the pin when you get to this point. Okay. So I'm pushing my safety pin back through the hole it came through. Yay! And then unhook that, unpin that, turn your machine on. Make sure it is on a zigzag stitch. I tend to do a really wide, but it's not going to move for 1/8 for thinner elastics, because what I like to do is to make sure that they're one on top of each other, put it directly under the needle, hold it down. Let me make these. Hold the thread and the elastic and just hold it in place. Let that go for a bit. And then you have a really tight knot right there. Cut your strings. Sometimes I trim the elastic if I went too far over. And then all you do is spread it, and suddenly you have a hidden elastic when it's behaving. And you can also replace it as needed. So I did this on, I will do it for the last 2 ones, but I already did it to the shirt. But we're going to be doing a different process for the seam where the shirt and the skirt connect, because that's so many layers. We're going to do a French seam casing. So we will get to that as soon as the skirt is ready. So again, my serger is a beast, so I'm going to end up doing this off camera so I can see what it's doing. I'm going to roll hem both skirts, the upper and the lower. Lower's right here. I'm going to carefully just kind of make sure this is laying flat when it's doing it so that it doesn't bubble at the end. When I get to these corners, I'm just going to softly curve it instead of just doing a harsh V. and that's gonna look a lot nicer when we're done. So both skirts are done. They're ready for the next step, which is to pin it to the top with wrong sides together, because we're gonna French seam this center, and we have it offset, which means that between these two red seams is one brown seam, so that it's off center of where the points are, so that the point of the brown one is in between the low spots of the red. I'm gonna go ahead and pin that, and then I will show you how to sew it on the sewing machine. I did it again. My phone is not the best recording device. So I went ahead and I stitched this all the way around. It is quite the struggle. Pin it frequently. Now, this is right sides together. So it's the right sides of the skirt, right sides of the shirt. The tails are up on this side. I'm going to go ahead and cut close-ish to the seam, turn it inside out, and then enclose what's right here in its own seam that then I'll feed the elastic through. So I have this pinned, so now we have right sides together, and the top of that previous seam is right here. We're going to leave a casing where we're going to feed the drawstring, or elastic. Of course, this is not going to be something that we feed through this side. It actually is what we'll feed through the front, but I will show that when we get there. Now, I like to leave my drawstrings open, or my casings open, because of the fact that I feel like if you need to replace it later, I want that to be an option. So we're going to go forward, back, and then go all the way around. And yes, I am leaving a decent sized casing this time. And this is also called a French seam, because it's totally encased without the need of a serger. I was told it's of a high sewing skill, which makes me feel bad for all my previous students that I taught it as a regular seam, because raw seams against skin is not something to have in garments. Slowly but surely making it to the front. Okay. Remember to backstitch. Okay. And then don't forget to clip all of your strings. I generally do it the moment I finish a seam so that I don't end up going back with a bunch of other ones. So I spent about 5 minutes talking to myself before I realized that nobody's on. So I have my elastic pinned, and I feed it through this side, and then I turn it inside out, and I'm using the actual casing to push it through. This is a fantastic way of getting a casing pretty much anywhere you want it. I fold and make a casing just like this when I want to add an elastic to the middle of the sleeve, instead of sewing an actual piece in, or heaven forbid, just going ahead and making a seam already there. Of course, this is a little more difficult because this safety pin has had quite enough of me using it at this point, so it is constantly coming undone, but I don't know where any other small safety pins are right at this moment. They're like bobby pins. Safety pins just disappear. which is funny because I got like a pound of it a couple years ago. Sorry for awkward angle. Kitten is at my feet and refuses to move for the tripod. Okay. Firmly attach your elastic. Trim off the threads and a little bit of the excess. And then pull your seam until the extra elastic goes inside, and then suddenly we have an elastic drawstring in the middle, which makes it look so much nicer. Okay, all done. My big boy on his new cat perch, Ranger. There's my beautiful big boy. And as a bonus, we have kitten tats. This is Jarvis, Ranger's therapy kitten, for Ranger's anxiety. Aw, you look so relaxed. If you like this video and want to see others like it, please like, comment, and subscribe.